Welcome to another episode where we spill the tea on all things Flea. From wild vendor stories to incredible finds, we're bringing you the voices, treasures, and secrets of the flea market world. So grab a seat and let's dive in. This is you, me, and the Flea. Matt Hanson, thanks so much for making the time for us today.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Okay, we really need to pick your brain. So, first of all, welcome to You, Me, and the Flea. Obviously a flea market podcast, which I'm sure, have you ever done?
I
Probably
no,
never have, yeah.
no. This is the first.
Okay, awesome. Welcome. So as well, first of all, let's introduce you. So I know you as a few things, a professor, right? And then obviously starting Mastering Local Marketing podcast. What else can you tell us about yourself? How did you
Yeah,
get in
no.
marketing?
I've been doing marketing for about 25, 26 years at this point. So
Awesome.
have worked my way through publishing, have worked in the agency space, have worked with Fortune 500 companies, have worked with small businesses. But there really is there really is a need for small businesses to understand what marketing is. And I think too many of them have a misunderstanding, don't really they look at it and say it's just social and all these other things. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do is just trying to spread a little bit of information so people have more than just saying social is their marketing. And it's been really interesting over the last, we'll call it 4 or 5 months in sharing some of those ideas. But it's
Yeah.
kind of what brought you and I together as well.
I know, crazy, right?
Yeah.
I guess my main thing too is, so how long have you been teaching?
Oh, well, let's put it this way. I am the old man in the room at this point when we have our meetings. So,
No way.
I've been teaching since, let me think, 2008 was the
Okay.
first class that I taught. And that was consistent. So I've done like adjunct and things like that. But, I've been teaching teaching digital marketing before digital marketing was actually a thing.
Yeah, a question I have off the bat is
Mhm.
how has it changed since probably you started, which I'm sure it probably changes year to year for you,
Right.
but what are some of the main things?
I remember the very first digital ad I ever did, and I was working for Futures Magazine, and we were doing little button ads on Yahoo Finance. And I
Oh my
remember they were
gosh.
these small little buttons, and there were maybe 6 of them across the top of the page. And I laughed. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And today it's just it's another display ad that's out there, but going back in time and kind of understanding that it was new. We didn't know where the internet was going.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we were selling trading charts for a trading service that we had, and they were paper charts that we were literally scanning and putting up on the internet
Oh my
instead of
gosh.
some kind of chart that was moving. But they were paper charts. They were scans that we were putting in. So that'll tell you kind of when things started. It was a ways back.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, so
Yep.
obviously a very unique thing with a flea market is we're compiled right with a bunch of small little businesses.
Mhm.
So I'm curious because I know you host your own marketing podcast. What are some maybe like a few tips that you have, however many you think would work?
Sure.
If I'm a person obviously selling on a weekend at a flea market, how can I market myself? What would some tips you have?
I think the biggest thing that I would tell people is take a walk, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just walk around and see what you look at. What gets your interest? Is it sound? Is it visuals? Is it colors? Is it the size of a booth? Is it a certain area? What is it that gets your attention? And
Mm-hmm.
then start to ask yourself, okay, well, who is the target audience that I'm going after? So if I'm a 49-year-old male, maybe that's not your target audience. Maybe your target audience is a 22-year-old female that is out looking for deals. I don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But start to understand, start to look at different places, different vendors. Their audiences are going to be different, right? So last week was my birthday, and I took my kids. We went to
Oh, happy
a.
belated.
Thank you. Yeah, we killed time. We went to an old. Basically, they had old toys from back in the '80s and '90s,
Oh, cool.
and my son is buying a Funko Pop, and I'm looking at the old Transformers and the He-Mans and things that I grew up with. But realize that there are different age groups, there are different types of people that are looking for different things. So if you're at a flea market, obviously we also went to an antique store, and they have a variety of different booths and everything. And it's funny because each one of us, so it was my two kids and myself, and each one of us were looking at different things. So if you walk around a flea market and you start to understand, okay, this is who I typically am going after, look at where they're stopping, look at what they're picking up, and start to go, okay, well, if this person that I'm targeting over here, there's 3 of them at this booth, go over and start to listen, understand what they're doing, see the visuals, see the products that they have. And quite honestly, you're going to learn more just from observation than doing anything else. And we call that ethnographic research. I mean, we do it in stores and everything else. So I would say start there. That's probably your number one thing. And then also understand who has the traffic, right? So there are people that will have one person at a booth, and there are people that will have 10, 15 people at a booth. Why is that? What is it that's drawing them in? The other thing that you and I talked about back a couple of weeks ago was using it as a resource to kind of test different product, right? So if there is something that you're thinking about carrying, buy a few of them, even go buy them at retail and just bring them in and see if they sell. Even if, just use it as a research tool. So million different things you can do. We can dive into one, or we can dive into many, but I think the greatest part about a flea market is just the fact that you have so many different things you can observe and test that you can then take, even if you own a shop, you can then take back to your shop and actually use that for research purposes.
Right, 100%. I agree. And it's a very interesting tactic, but then even so, it's like you have your target audience, but then there might be even some more people that you thought wouldn't be interested that are,
Right.
which I always love for them too, because then you have to go to the drawing board and say, okay, wait, I didn't expect an age group or a demo of 65 plus to be interested in my product, but maybe I can expand my product into this group
Right.
now,
Well,
so it's really cool.
a perfect example with that is the trading card boom that has happened over the last few years, right? So
Yeah.
I appreciate the older stuff just because I'm older, but there are kids today that are buying ridiculous expensive cards out there, and they're new cards, right? So you have two separate the ones that are buying the new cards that are coming out, the inserts and the prisms and all these other things that they have out there. But then there's the older generation that appreciates the 50s, 60s, 70s cards. Even, maybe you look back at the 80s and 90s, the garbage era as we call it. But you're collecting things that you wanted, that you had in your past. So
Right.
there's a million different audiences, and I think that's the cool part is you start to understand, oh, I'm missing an entire audience because I'm not targeting the younger generation, or I'm not targeting the older generation.
Yeah.
That's a fun way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about something maybe that I know specifically some vendors probably don't think about, and that's branding,
Mhm.
right? So you and I as marketers know how important it is to kind of establish that, keep your tone alive and all of these things. But for somebody who maybe has no idea what that even is, what would you say to someone in terms of branding for like a small business?
Yeah, you have to kind of put yourself into a position into somebody's mind, right? So as
Hmm.
they're thinking about where they're going to buy, or as they're walking by, let's think of it so simple here, right? So I walk up on a booth and I see they've thrown a blanket on the floor. There's a bunch of stuff out. I don't know who they are. I don't see a name. I don't see anything. I don't see a logo.
Right.
They don't introduce themselves. there's no personality there. I see it just as another vendor. But then you walk up and somebody else has a logo and they have, some branding. Maybe they're handing something out. Maybe they're giving something away with an email. You can sign up for email giveaways and things that they do. Those are a lot more memorable. And that's what we're talking about with branding is everyone always tells me, I get students all the time, marketing doesn't work. I go, okay, well, can you tell me the taglines of, this company or this company? And, when I say just do it to them, they're like, well, yeah, that's Nike. And I go, well, you're not born with that. Or,
Right.
Red Bull gives you wings. You're not born with that. That was a slogan that somebody came up with. And now they have this entire brand that has been developed. And, you got to realize that when we go in there and we start to look to buy, all of that is taken into account. So if you walk up to a booth and there's no branding, there's no personality, they don't introduce themselves, and you walk up to another booth with the exact same item, they're welcoming, they're telling you stories of how they accumulated the things that they're selling. They have a logo, completely different, right? People react differently. So branding is really important. Now, I'm not saying to go out there and create the next Red Bull Nike campaign, but just do some simple things, right? So, some of the people that we deal with locally, they've branded themselves perfectly, and they're a niche product. They're in a small little environment. People get to know them over time. But if you go to the flea market over and over and over again, keep consistency. Don't try to change things up, but everybody knows you for who you are. So make sure that you keep that consistency, that same look, that same feel, that same conversation, that openness, whatever it may be. And I think you're going to be better off.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is even as you mentioned when you first started talking was the person that just puts the tarp down and throws her stuff on it. It's so interesting because sometimes those folks are the ones that are like, "Oh, I'm Bob's Junk." They
Yeah.
have an LLC and it's like, man, if you just had like a little sticker or something with your name on it like that, you could probably go a lot further. They just don't. And so I'm like, man, you're missing an opportunity there.
Well, even with that, I mean, if you own that part of it, right? So let's say you throw it down, there's a blanket, you put your product down, and it's things that you have found resources that nobody can find, right? And you start to
Right.
tell the story of, oh, I found this in a barn in Wichita, and the conversation I had with the man that owned it, right? That is branding as well, because now you're finding unique items. You don't necessarily need the beautiful booth, because what you're doing is you're showing that you are a gritty kind of person that goes out
Yeah.
there and finds the one-off type things, and that may be part of your brand, right? So I don't need to look pretty and have all of these things, because what I do is I go through and I find the things that nobody else can find, and that's what I have here for you, and I can tell you the story about it, right? So
Yeah.
again, that's another way to brand. It doesn't have to be all these pretty little things that you put together and business cards and logos and the $2,000 booth. And I'm not saying you
Right.
should go do that, but like putting all of this design into it. You can own something as simple as a blanket in front of you, but you can go all in if you really want to. So either way is
Yeah.
fine. It's just brand yourself some way, shape or form.
Yeah. Love that.
Yep.
And then especially I'm curious to hear your thoughts on because things have gone so digitally. What are your thoughts on kind of some of these quote like old school tactics of like should some of these smaller businesses have business cards, flyers, things on hand to pass out, some of those, you know, old paper
Right.
ways of distributing their name. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the biggest thing that everyone should look at is email, right? So
Right.
how do I get an email from somebody that is visiting me? And that could be something as simple as getting updates as to let's say I find one-off items. Somebody will get an email from me on a Wednesday for a Sunday flea market saying, hey, by the way, here are the items that I'm bringing on Sunday, tipping you off to say, there's only one of these. When it's gone, but, you have the ability to kind of communicate with them. A lot of people will jump on social, and that's perfectly fine as well because you can do the exact same thing. So I think, yes, you should utilize some technology, but in reality, I mean, a lot of people do enjoy old school, old school selling. I mean, again, we went to the antique mall, and there's something about it. It's not a digital in your face all the time, right? So
Right.
I would say if you're going to do digital, have a purpose for it, but I don't necessarily think you need it. I think at a flea market, you're looking at it in terms of I'm shopping for the unknown. I don't know what's going to be there. It's you stumble upon it and you're like, oh, I didn't know I need this. It's all impulse buys. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to do anything from a flea market perspective, yeah, digital is great, but I would focus more on impulse purchases and how you get attention and understand that side. So, start to look at like grocery stores, how a good majority of purchases happen at the checkout, right? So
Right.
why is that? Because it grabs our attention. It's that last second thing. Maybe it's an upsell, right? So if you're at a flea market, maybe it's maybe you're bringing some kind of drinks or prepackaged food or something like, I don't know, but have something that will get attention. But I can go a million different directions with this. But
Yeah.
digital, yes, you can go that direction. But there's also the old school kind of just getting attention as people are going through. They're hunting. They're hunting
Right.
for what they're going to buy. They don't know what it is going in. Nobody goes into a flea market and goes, I'm going to go buy XYZ. It's
Exactly.
it's I have, 20, 40, $100 in my pocket and I'm going to go shop today and I'm going to see what I come out with. And that
Right.
really is an impulse buy. Oh, that's what you got to understand.
Yes. Love that. Okay. A lot of our folks too, some of these older generations are a little bit intimidated by social media, and the digital world in itself. And I get that all the time. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. What's some advice maybe that you would have for somebody that's intimidated by social media, or like where should they start?
Oh, that's a good one. I've been doing this for, like I said, for 20 plus years, 25 years, and I'm
Yeah.
still intimidated by everything that's out there because I'm constantly learning new and new, things are always
Right.
evolving. What I tell everyone is find one thing that you're comfortable with. So if you spend a majority of your time on Facebook, become comfortable with Facebook. If you are comfortable with sending out emails to your clients, then focus on email. If
Mm-hmm.
you are focused on just giving out business cards and that's what you want to do, then give out a business card to everyone you see.
Mm-hmm.
But find one thing that you're comfortable with and learn as much as you possibly can. I think everyone tries to do everything, right? They go out there
Right.
and I'm going to do email and I'm going to do business cards, I'm going to do flyers, and I'm going to do I'm going to be on TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest, and stop. You can't be
Yeah.
everywhere. Like run your business, but find one thing that you're good at or that you want to become good at, and then
Mm-hmm.
learn what you can there. And don't go all in and do a million things at once and then give up.
Right.
Consistency is key. I mean, no matter what you do in life, it's got to become a habit. And just because you post 20 times in one week and then you give up and say, "Oh, it doesn't work." Well, give it time, right? So maybe
Right.
take the 20 and spread it over a month and just
Yeah.
say, "Okay, I'm going to do 20 more next month," and so forth. And it's funny because over time you'll start to see it and go, "Okay, well, I wasn't comfortable with this. Now I am, and now I'm going to try a few new things, but the consistency is there and people will see that you are consistent with it and people will start to follow you based on that." So if you see, I mean, you see this all the time. You'll see somebody that
Yeah.
posts 10 times, they give up. I'm not doing that anymore. That's fine.
Right.
But if I would pick one and just focus there and become good at that. Once you got that figured out, maybe go to two. But I say if you're doing one, you're doing better than none.
Yeah. And I think it's the intimidating part is, especially on social media, there's so many like trends, and it's like by the time you may figure out how to post or do the dance, like, or get, your employees to do something silly to like hop on the trend, then it's like on to the next one and
Right.
you've already missed that opportunity, right? And so I think they just don't even want to start, an Instagram page in general then. They're like, we'll just stick to our Facebook, and it's like that's fine, right? Like just stick to that and make that your brand and keep it consistent like you've mentioned. What is maybe some advice you have for some of our folks that want to convert that one-time shopper, right, into maybe something a little bit more loyal, someone a little consistent, right? I think of, I'm sure some of the brands or people that have an established space like in a strip mall or in an actual mall, they might have a chance to kind of reel people back in. But somebody at a flea market, like you said, if it's maybe just the one time a year that you're coming to visit, well, no, maybe I can squeeze that person a few more visits,
Mhm.
right? So, what are some tips you have there?
So marketing is all about relationships. And I think people think it's all about just selling one time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to ask yourself, if I'm going to have a relationship with this person, what is it that I'm going to provide some value, right? So if I sell to them once a year, they come and they buy something from me, is that really a relationship or is that transactional in nature? I mean, I can go
Mm-hmm.
buy from anybody one time. But if let's say there's some kind of product that I buy from you, and there's a potential for me to buy additional types of products in the future, right? So let's say it's a collectible or whatever, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
car part or whatever. Odds are I'm open to buying from you in the future. So what can you give me of value to stay connected with you? So I'm probably not going to give you my cell phone number so you can call me.
Right.
I might be willing to give you my email. So, how do you make it so easy for me to give you an email? But what are you going to give me in value?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, if I say to you, hey, the next time I just went to a car show last weekend and I'm looking at all these cars. And let's say that there's somebody there selling car parts, and I'm looking at my brother's got a '69 Camaro. I mean, great car.
Cool. Yeah.
Let's say that I have a '69 Camaro and I'm redoing it, and this guy has some parts there. Great. If he says, oh, or if I tell I'm looking for this part and he doesn't have it, that's a cue, right? So it should be, hey, this guy is actively looking for these types of things. I should take his information because if I stumble upon that piece that he's looking for, I can send him an email and say, hey, I just found that piece for you. It would be this much. Would you want it? And then you
Mm-hmm.
can buy it and then obviously put your margin in there. So it really just comes down to how much work you want to put into it, but it's a relationship. And I think
Right.
email is the easiest way to communicate with people because we're not going to give you our phone numbers, right? Nobody
Yeah.
wants to get text messages and phone calls from everybody, but we're willing to do the email because we can quickly delete it. It's personal, but it's not personal. So I think ideally at least collect an email somehow, some way, and you provide that value up front and say, I know you're looking for these parts. When I come across them, I'm going to email you. And you just put a little note saying this person's looking for parts for a '69 Camaro, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is, I mean, we talked branding earlier. Somebody that's taking the time and effort to actually help you, they almost become like a personal shopper for the customer.
Right.
And at that point, I'll be honest. I mean, I'll give you my email. If you're going to go out and find the things for me that I'm looking for, I'll buy from you all day long because now you're providing some value that nobody else is providing.
Right. Love that. And it's true because it's just that extra little step, right? That a lot of even any business today, any restaurant today,
Mhm.
like if you don't kind of take that time and put that TLC in, you could potentially lose a person forever, not
Right.
even just, a second time, but oh, that was a good one. Okay. So also want to shift a little bit to, so we run flea markets here and we have our individual vendors that come and sell. So then, from a perspective of, a lot of my colleagues that are in the business in general, the other customer that we are trying to bring in is always that visitor, the shopper as well. So
Mhm.
we have two different types of people that we market to. And a lot of flea markets, as you know, some of them are big like Swap-O-Rama, but some of them are just smaller mom and pop
Mhm.
shops. Some have big marketing teams, some have small marketing
Mhm.
teams. Coming from a perspective of like marketing as a whole. So now let's try, marketing Swap-O-Rama the business. What advice maybe do you have in tips of that? Some like drive-in traffic. Should we focus on being more of a retail space? Are we like in a destination place? Kind of like some of the antique places that you've been
Mhm.
to. What do you think they should be focusing on?
That's a big question. What do we have? Like an hour? And no, just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the interesting part is number one, understanding kind of I always call it the farm, where
hmm
you're pulling customers from. So if you're pulling customers from a 5 mile, 10 mile, 20 mile radius, those are typically people that are shopping in your area.
hmm
If you are pulling people from outside of that radius, you become a destination. Right. So there's
Right.
those are differences, right? So I'm driving by, it's a Sunday. Oh, I'm just going to stop over here and shop versus I put it in my calendar. I'm going to go
Right.
see, this is where we're heading. Right. So, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I had to drop off my daughter in Angola, Indiana. So we went past Shipshawana, and Shipshawana is, again, one of those things where it's a destination.
Oh
Nobody
yeah. Yeah, it's a
nobody
big
just
beast.
heads to Shipshawana, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by it. Like those are different ways to market. If it's normal in my community and I'm stopping by, that's a constant reminder that I'm here.
Right.
But something that's a destination, we're in Chicago, so I mean, let's be honest, it
Yeah.
gets cold. You're probably not seeing a whole lot of demand in January to go to an outside destination, right? So you start to think of all these different components, and so I guess going back to your question is understand if you're a destination or if you are a full, you know, everyone is shopping you on a regular basis. The other thing to look at is where are those people online? Are they driving? I know the one that I pass all the time is right off the expressway as you're right by Cicero.
hmm
Lots and lots and lots of traffic. So you're not hidden like some of the other ones maybe are hidden. I know there's one just south of me that unless you're going past it or unless you're thinking destination, you're probably not hitting it, right? So
Right.
you've got the benefit of being right next to an extremely busy expressway, which allows people to jump off and jump back on and have that ability. So when it comes to marketing, you're a little bit better off than those destinations because it takes a whole lot more marketing and planning and all of that for the destinations. But if you're local and you're in that community, you become a staple of that community. I think you're in a much better situation. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's just interesting because, you know, I would love to say that, and our locations vary, which
Mhm.
makes marketing for me very fun. Um, because, our location in Chicago, for example, is very much so a 5 mile farm, right?
Right.
Like people are looking for their essentials, they're coming for produce, they're coming for all that stuff. However, we do have some folks that make it a trip when they come to the
Right.
city. And so I have to have two different hats on to say, okay, what is that? How do I talk to that person and how do I talk to this person?
Right.
And then likewise, there are other flea markets, in Denver, in Texas, and they have amusement rides at theirs.
Oh wow.
So it's like, how do you sort of establish, like keep your established as like a Walmart essentially, and then also a Six Flags.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we always kind of have to think about that balancing act. And like I said, some of us have very small budgets for marketing or no staff at all, and it's like, great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, be creative with what you can do. I mean,
Yeah,
you're not going to put up with, you're not going to have 10, $100 million budgets. So,
right.
just understand, I think you said it spot on. Maybe you have a 5 mile farm and you just focus on hitting that one over and over and over again. And I think that's probably the smartest way to do it, because everyone else, and I've done this, what I tell everyone is to take all of your customers and put them on Google Maps and understand where you're pulling them from. And what you're going to notice is they're all close, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get the outliers, which is fine, but you're going to get, most of them are going to be close, and you're going to realize that if I put money way out, I'm wasting it on the few, but if I put money close, I'm hitting a good majority of
More, yeah,
who I'm targeting. So that's, yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Another thing in our industry that folks always have a lot of questions on, or, is it worth it? Should we throw some dollars into it? Is influencer marketing. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, that is always a good question, right?
I know.
Everybody, well, you know, when you think about it, you have micro influencers, you have macro influencers.
Hmm.
I think the way to look at it is, what benefit do they have for you? Right? So they've got a huge following, but does it make sense for you to participate with them?
Hmm.
I've worked with influencers. I've seen some that have gone really, really badly. And I've seen some that have just absolutely exploded with sales and interest and everything. So
Hmm.
I think you have to find the right ones. And I think what we're talking about here is more on the local level. So go out there and look for, people that are on Instagram or TikTok that you can tie back to your town, your city, your location, and see if there's anything that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So, are they in your hometown and they have 10,000 people following them? Okay, great. Like, let's do something together. Find smaller ones, and I think you're better off. I think the larger ones, again, if you go out there and you partner with somebody that has 1 million followers and you're in Chicago and they're in San Francisco, and you only sell in Chicago, that doesn't
Right.
make sense. Like that, don't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just wasting time and effort. That makes absolutely no sense. So understand where you're selling and then go, all right, who makes sense from an influencer standpoint? And maybe talk to a couple of people that have worked with them already and
Yeah.
say, was it worth it? Did you see an uptick in sales or visits or whatever it may be? Hopefully they'll allow you to talk to those people. If they don't, I mean, that's a red flag right there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
um, but I've seen it work and I've seen it
And they're
go horribly wrong.
expensive, right? So you want to take that time on the front end to say, if this person isn't specifically hitting my demographic, I'm not going to put my dollars
Right.
there, right?
Right. But also too, I mean, a good majority of small businesses are in towns that are 5 to 10,000 people.
Right.
So if you can identify one or two people in those vicinities and say, I'll give you X number of dollars to help promote us, odds are those people in those areas are following them already. So
Right.
we've seen a huge uptick recently about people that are doing reviews of restaurants and shopping and things like that. Maybe partner with one of them. I mean, they're obviously pushing it out to the masses and people are looking for things to do. So that's a
Hmm.
good like micro influencer in your area that makes a little bit more sense because it comes from a standpoint of they're doing a review, and that could be good or that could be bad, but those I would focus more on that than I would some huge influencer that most of their
Right.
followers come from all over the place. Doesn't make sense.
Right. Or if they're like a fitness influencer, it's like,
Right.
well, that's not
Yeah, exactly.
thank you, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless you're going to go shop for fitness equipment and, say that you can find it there, that's probably not going to align.
Right.
But
And
okay.
if they have a website that they're selling on, that's great too.
Right.
I mean, but
Yeah.
again, understanding if you have a website that sells, your farm gets a lot bigger.
Yeah.
So again, goes back to, am I selling online? Am I not selling online?
Yeah.
Those are all decisions you have to make.
Yeah. Okay, a few more questions
Sure.
here. And one would be what are off the top, like, what are some analytics or what kind of data as a marketer should we be collecting? I know you mentioned kind of observing, and I think
Mhm.
that's absolutely right. Like sometimes I just stand there and I'm visually like ticking in my head, male, female, I'm doing all these like statistical kind of grabs,
Mhm.
but what else? Should I be looking at social media insights or Google Analytics? What do you think?
Are we talking about people that are selling, or are we talking about?
From a flea market perspective, yeah,
Okay.
as a whole, me.
So I think let's break it down into the most simple thing. You have a booth. Do you ever count the number of people that stop by your booth?
Right.
Right. So that's number one. Number two, how many orders or how many people purchase from you at that booth during that day? And then the third one is always, what is the average ticket at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I know we've talked numbers, whether it's 5,000 or 20,000 people that walk through. If you can get those numbers, if people know those numbers, you can say, well, I'm getting this percentage of people that walk through came to my booth. Of those people that came to my booth, I converted 10% of them
Mm-hmm.
for an average ticket of, I'm just picking numbers, $25. And then you could say, okay, well, next week I want to get that to $30, right? And you start to work, or I want to sell to 15% that come through, right? And you start to, it almost holds you accountable. Instead of people just walking by and you just kind of let them go,
Mm-hmm.
you stick there and you say, okay, well, today I want to increase the number of people that come over to my booth. So I have to do things that will get more people's attention. And by simply getting more people to walk over, you're going to sell more, right? It's just that it's a
Right.
law of averages. You're going to sell more and, obviously you'll make more money. So if you look at those three areas, you can literally make more money without doing really a whole lot of anything. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
number of people that come to your booth, number of orders that you have, and your average order ticket. So maybe do an upsell, right? So bring a case of water, and hey, we've got water for an extra dollar. I mean, $1 more every single order. Hey, it's one more dollar than you had before, right?
Right. Right.
And I know that's a small idea,
Yeah,
but
no, anything. Buy one, get one free. A little, any sort of kind of special, even, I think is helpful. Perfect.
yeah, those are the
Okay.
three that I give to everyone because,
I love
quite
that.
honestly, we track those at my family had a home decor store for years, and we tracked those every
Oh,
single
cool.
day, and that allowed us to grow. And we knew when the slow points were going to be. We knew when the heavy points were going to be. We adjusted sales based off of that. We did tons of upsells because we knew we could get it to a certain point. I mean, we knew at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, where we should be, and we measured that every single time, and we would see an increase, and it would be great because you
Yeah.
would see it and you'd get excited about it. You're like, oh, great, let's beat it again, right? So
Yeah.
if you're not measuring, everything just seems the same.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. And then I know you work with a ton of small businesses and
Mhm.
that's kind of your focus. What do you tell people that are competing against big box stores, right? Whether it's anyone,
Mhm.
how do we compete with some of these people?
So I think personality. Let's just start there. I think it's
Okay.
personality. When you go into a big box store, there's no personality. It's a faceless entity. You don't know who owns it. I mean, most of them are publicly traded, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go into a small establishment, you're dealing with a small business, there's a personality behind it. and you start to have your favorite personalities, the different stores, and you get to know them and they become friends.
Mhm.
That is completely different. Now, yes, you may pay a few extra dollars because you're not buying in bulk and all these other things, but if you offer specific services, things that they can't get anywhere else, that personality and that bond becomes a lot stronger, right? So
Right.
again, if I walk into Target tomorrow, it's a bunch of kids running a cash register. It's a faceless entity. There's no personality to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
If I walk into the local town square and I walk into a shop, the first thing they're going to do is greet you. And, next thing you know, you're in a 10-minute conversation with them about something that you're shopping for. Maybe they're collecting an email saying, "Hey, I'd love to send you an email when we get that in next," right? Like there's the
Right.
personal shopping, a personal sell. And I think in where we are today, I think digital and AI have made marketing so, how do I want to put this? So such a faceless entity that we're not sure what to believe anymore.
Right.
So the personal sell is coming back, and I think people appreciate that more, and that they're a little bit more trusting in dealing with a local small business owner than they are from a faceless entity or these AI deep fake kind of stuff that you're seeing at this point. So I personally think that a lot of people look at it as a small business. They look at it and say, "Oh, I'm at a disadvantage." And what I tell them is, you're actually at an advantage. The problem is you just don't have enough awareness
Right.
to drive the traffic in. That's where the disadvantage comes.
Right. Love that. And I agree. I think that's what keeps our business thriving at the end of the day. And so, and I don't think each little booth realizes
Hmm.
that it's like, you are your face.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, a little bit rapid fire here to wrap up. What's one word that you describe for the future of marketing?
Evolution.
Really? Okay. What social media platform should we be focusing on right now?
Ooh, YouTube, without a doubt. I think
Oh,
where we are right now, I work in higher ed, and there are a variety of students that will come to me and say, "I learned this on YouTube." And they'll
mm-hmm.
come in and they'll already know certain things. And that's great. I think we are at a point now where you can learn anything you want to learn online, and you can learn it through TikTok and Instagram and all the other ones. But I think YouTube is the place to learn. My dishwasher breaks, I go on there, I find out how to take it apart.
Yes,
Right?
I know.
Let's be honest. So
From like,
I think that's where we're
yeah,
at this point.
yes, absolutely. I agree. I literally had a problem with my mom's dishwasher and we watched a video and fixed it from like a Bosch tech. So we
Yeah.
were like, great.
Perfect.
Okay. What about one of your biggest marketing pet peeves?
Oh, if I hear another small business say I'm the best kept secret or something like that, I can't do it anymore. There is no best kept secret.
Yeah, a hidden gem. If I hear that one where I'm like, okay,
Yeah, no. What I
you
tell
just
them
have a
is,
cool space.
if you're a secret, you're not getting out there and telling people what you
Yeah.
do.
Okay, and last one, best piece of advice you have for an entrepreneur.
All I would say, never stop learning.
Love that.
In 25 plus years of marketing, I'm still to this day learning different things. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm still learning things. I think you when you stop learning, you stop growing, and everyone
Hmm.
continues to pass you by. So just keep learning. Find stuff that interests you. Stay away from things that don't interest you. I mean, don't learn the things you don't want to learn. I mean, find the stuff that excites you.
Yeah, perfect. Oh my gosh, Matt, thank you so, so much for your time. This was awesome.
Well,
I
thank
think
you
so
for
many
having me.
people in our network will benefit from this and can't wait to share it with them. So
Sounds
thank you
good.
so much. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
No, anytime.
Any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share?
No, I mean, if anyone ever, if you get stuck, just
Hmm.
reach out. I think You guys can find me. I'm out online. You can listen to.
Yeah, I'll leave your information below
Yeah,
too.
they
So
can
yeah.
listen to, our Mastering Local Marketing podcast. Again, just keep learning. I would say if you're a small business, you're selling different things at the flea market, just pick one or two or maybe even three things that you can learn and just test one at a time. I mean, marketing is nothing but just doing testing. So find things that you can test, try it, and honestly, it's like a game. It's fun to watch when something works, and you're just like, I wasn't doing that before. Now I'm doing it.
Yeah.
My sales are up 15%. This is great, right? Just keep learning. That's all.
Definitely. Or it'll teach you at
Right.
the end of it. Yeah, it'll force you to learn anyway. So
Exactly.
Matt, thank you so much. Really appreciate it again. And thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. Thank you.